a report into the death of pupil Latoya Temilton says there were no lifeguards nor educators on site when the grade 7 learner drowned. Temilton from Laerskool Queenswood in Pretoria tragically lost her life in January this year during a school leadership camp in Olifantsfontein. In the report, independent law firm Gauteng attorneys concluded that the Gauteng Department of Education might also face civil liability for the incident due to potential negligence. It also recommended that the principal and the educators be charged with misconduct for providing dishonest and falsified information to the department and or its agent. Now, following the testimonies which contradicted those of the learners. SGB at the school was also found to be non-functional, hence their less participation in this particular matter. Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona joins us now in studio just to unpack some of the findings of this report. Steve, thank you so much for your time. I mean, this report is quite scathing and implicates a number of role players, for not doing what they were meant to do. I mean, this particular case, if I can take you back, really shocked the country. But what was more, revealing is that it also highlighted that there is a problem in as far as school excursions are concerned and the number of drownings that we've been seeing in the past years. Just your reaction.
No, thanks very much. That's why we opted for an independent body to conduct this investigation. And recommendations are actually guiding us on actions that we need to take. They are actually assisting us to prevent in the near future incidences like this, because it dictates that we need to go review some of our policies, especially on excursions, the approval process. We must do away with the approval process that is at the school level, where the senior management team at the school and the SGB can decide, with the parents. It dictates that we need to review that, go back. The approval process must be at the district level. And the institutions that we are taking our children to, we also need to get to understand on how they operate. I mean, we can't have an institution that will say, here there are no lifeguards. There's even a signage that says there's no lifeguards. Then we take our children there. So such institutions must be blacklisted to say schools can't take our children there. So those are the recommendations that come from the investigative body, which they will be helpful for the department.
And I mean, it is a responsibility then also of the Department of Education, if I can say so myself. Of course, knowing very well what you're saying in terms of parents also need to make sure that they also investigate some of these institutions. I think it is a two-way responsibility, including, of course, these institutions that should be closed down and also found liable. But just going back into just some of the findings, from this report, the attorney is also pointing out, of course, that the school might have falsified, some information. I want to read a passage here. It says that the attorney's investigation into the tragic incident at the leadership camp revealed several shortcomings in the planning and the execution of the excursion. They found that the principal, the deputy principal, and an educator lacked knowledge of the legislative framework for excursions, recommending, charges for contravention section 16A and recommended training on excursion regulations. Whose responsibility then is that, for schools across the province, to understand these frameworks and make sure that they are implemented?
It's our responsibility as the department to make sure that our educators are well trained and policies are understood by the SGB and the educators. That's why now we're going to be training all SGBs, because we just concluded the elections. As you know, that we started on the 1st of March up until the 31st of March. We are electing new SGBs. All of them need to be trained. Matthew Koniwe School of Governance will be training them on all the policies, the Act as well, Schools Act, all those elements that will be assisting them on how to govern. Because the recommendations are saying the SGB was, non-functional. They recommended that it must be disbanded. at that time. So you can tell that there were things that were not probably, in the know-how of the SGB because they were probably not participative, and it became a challenge for us. So we will make sure that we utilize these recommendations as a department and make sure that the educators, including principals, they understand on how to conduct themselves, especially when coming to excursions. They are saying there they did not know anything, and the planning, they were found wanting, because you can't take children to where they are saying there are no lifeguards. For starters, these are children, in a primary school. In the event there's no one that cannot swim, how are you going to assist them in the event of anything? Even, the vests are not available. So all those elements, we had to make sure that we take charge. And the recommendations, like as we've already indicated, we're going to have to implement them. So we will be announcing on how we're going to be moving forward. But yes, indeed.
And one of those recommendations, which we've also talked about and touched on in the introduction, is that they're recommending that the principal and the educators be charged with misconduct for providing dishonest and falsified information to the department. So I would imagine those are one of the things that you will be acting on. Has the school been notified about this particular report, and most importantly, the Temilton family?
Yes, definitely. We were with the family this morning. We started with them, gave them a summary of what transpired. And also we met with the SGB and the educators. Also, before we went public, we managed to give them the information to say, this is what is reflective in the report. You don't need to hear it from the media in the first instance. You need to understand this is what we're going to be doing. And the process will then unfold. Our labor units, be it in the head office and at the district level, they will then have to have a schedule on how they're going to be, preferring those charges, and the processes must then unfold. Educators or employees need to have a representative, and then the SGB, we need to facilitate probably election of some sort, because the SGB members from the previous SGB, they are part of this current one, and which recommendations are saying they should have been disbanded. Now, after disbanding, in SGB, those members cannot participate in an SGB for a period of 3 years or so. So we need them to go back and guide them on how to move forward.
Now, of course, what this particular incident highlighted was, again, that need to revisit some of these frameworks. And it is something that this report is speaking to. Whilst it did not find you, that you omitted your duties, in fact, it does say that on behalf of the department, you acted, responsibly, you acted quick and timeously, but it does recommend you withdraw certain memoranda that is currently on the systems, like Memorandum 106 of 2022, and restoring the approval process of excursions involving the district and an advisory council. I think you mentioned that one. They advised on workshops on the legal framework for schools and, closer monitoring of its implementation. While it is late for this little girl and a few other children that we have lost in such camps, what are you going to be doing in the next while, in as far as this one is concerned? We are talking about thousands of schools that you would then need to revisit, hold workshops with, and also encourage them, of course, to adhere to some of these frameworks.
Yes, indeed. It's a matter of us removing the approval process at the school level, because the memorandum says the senior management team with the SGB, they can then decide that these are the excursions that we're going to be, undergoing. And they will probably consult the parents, then they agree that this is what we will be doing. So we will then have to review that memorandum, which will then say, if we want to conduct any excursions, you need to submit those to the district. District will then have to do their due diligence, make sure that all those activities are approved, and like as it were, we'll then have to check all the places that we are taking our children, tick all the boxes. Those that we feel that according to our standards, they don't meet, required standards, then we'll have to take them out of the list that we'll be distributing to all schools. So in that sense, we will then be alleviating any event that might occur. So it simply says the approval process must move to the district, so move away from the school.
I don't know if you were explicit with this particular answer, but will you be opening a case against the principal and the deputy principal in this regard?
Now, remember, there's a criminal matter that is being investigated by the police. So that is a parallel process from what we are doing. After any death, police have a responsibility to open a case, whether it's culpable homicide, whether if there are people that are responsible, they will then probably do a murder, or they will do inquest. It's in their purview as the police, so will not enter that space. They should be in a position to update, because post-mortem report is there. It's available. Probably they have it in that docket. It's for them to guide on how they continue moving forward.